Hi, I'm Terrence Bird. At Health First New Jersey, we believe everyone should be informed about the important healthcare issues that affect them and their families. That's why Health First is proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Prudential Foundation, the Merck Company Foundation, the Verizon Foundation, the TD Charitable Foundation, PSE&G, the Newark Public Schools, and by the Terrell Fund.
This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, man.
I get that a lot. I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
Hey folks, this is One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. I want to introduce you to a very good friend of ours here at the program. He is Daniel A. McNeal, Program Officer of the Prudential Foundation. Good to see you, Dan.
Yes, good morning, Steve.
All throughout this program, there are 3 different segments. We'll be talking about some initiatives that Prudential is very committed to. But one of the things I'm very interested in is we've been colleagues for a long time. You work with us in cooperation with our Stand and Deliver Summer, yes, as well as our year-round leadership initiative with young people after school, trying to talk to them about leadership and communication and trying to gain the skills and tools they need. But one of the things that struck me is that there is a summer grant initiative that you're involved in. Why are the summer months so important, particularly for urban kids, for the Prudential Foundation?
Well, I think most people aren't aware that when you have children who are unengaged, coming from underserved communities, they lose about 2 to 3 months of math and reading competencies.
What do you mean they lose it?
Well, children typically in the summer months or the vacation months like to be engaged in camps, learning literacy programs, things of that sort. And when they come back to school, they come back actually with less information that they've been taught the prior year before. So it makes the teacher's job a little bit tougher. Students, they're not adequately prepared, and then they have to play a game of catch-up just to get onto their proper grade level.
Is there something about reading in particular? Because I know that the Newark Public Reading Challenge is a huge priority.
Yes.
What is it about reading first, and then talk about the Newark Public Reading Challenge?
Well, before you can teach math or any of the other subjects, you have to have a strong competency in reading and literacy. And those are the benchmarks and the foundations of any type of learning. Our Prudential Summer Reading Challenge with the Newark Public Library, it challenges young people of ages from K to 12 to get involved in their local library, because the library is such an anchoring institution in our city. They can read up to 6 books a day. Up to
That's the challenge.
Well, 6 books a day, 200 within the summer.
What?
Yes.
Is this doable?
Yes, it's very doable. I've seen young people read as many as 300 to 400 books in a summer. And what's great about it is that they present an oral or a written report, and then everyone comes for a certificate awards type ceremony where they are acknowledged for the types of reading that they're doing.
Why did Prudential get involved in this?
Well, Prudential, everyone knows us from a business perspective, but equally as important is that we have a very strong commitment in being citizens of the communities that we serve. As part of our corporate and civic footprint, we want to make sure that the people that we do business with understand that we're investing in them wholly, not just from a perspective of just doing business with them.
But you know, it's interesting, we were talking about this before. Math and reading, 2 of the areas that most of the problems happen in the summer.
Yes.
But it's not just Newark, because you were also talking about the fact that you were serving young people. I believe it are over 8,000.
Yes.
8,200 children throughout the summer.
Yes.
K through 12.
Correct.
Elizabeth, East Orange, right here where we tape our program right out of St. Joseph's studio, right here in Paterson, New Jersey. Trenton, Jersey City, and Newark.
Yes.
Why those cities?
Well, these are cities that have long been connected with Newark. Obviously, Newark being our base of operations, but it's equally important that we have investments in these cities as well, because the young people are in dire need of the necessary skills and competencies to be productive in the 21st century playing field economy.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, Albany, New York.
You know, it's interesting. People hear Albany. I think when you grow up in New Jersey, and we've had this discussion before, I don't think people know Albany.
Yes.
Albany's not a rich town.
No, it's a very law-centered town, and it has its share of urban areas as well, where, you know, I grew up in one of those areas.
When you came to New Jersey, when you came to the Prudential Foundation, you know, and the foundation, and we've known you for a long time. You've been an underwriter of ours,
Yes.
Particularly with our youth programs, youth leadership. Excuse me. What struck you? What continues to strike you about the young people that you come in direct contact with as a program officer at the foundation?
That if you give someone an opportunity, regardless of the background that they come from, they can be successful. And that's what my job is as a program officer to do, is to provide opportunity for those people who may not necessarily have access to those opportunities.
You really see that?
I sure do.
Why do you think so many people, Dan, I don't want to make this overly philosophical, but I just sense that so many folks wind up putting urban kids in a box
Yes.
because it's easier.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean there are not problems with urban kids. There are problems with all kids.
Right.
But it's so much easier to put kids from urban areas in a box and say, this is what their future is likely to be. You don't see that.
No, I don't. I mean, I see a set of circumstances that may provide some small obstacles.
Go ahead. What are they? What do you see? Because you're out there, you see these kids, but you also see what they face. Because we know that you also fund a lot of nonprofits
Yes.
who are keeping these kids safe as possible,
Right.
off the streets and engaged.
Yes.
And so talk about what they're facing.
Well, a lot of our young people today are facing the threats of gangs, gang violence, drugs. A lot of our young people come from broken homes. The parental unit may be one parent, you know, or extended member of the family, like a grandmother or grandfather. And you couple that, in addition to subpar conditions in our school system, it makes it very difficult to be successful. And that's where Prudential and our youth development portfolio comes in. We're trying to level the playing field to give these young people an opportunity to be successful, and then more importantly, to be able to contribute to this 21st century economy.
You know, talk about leveling the playing field, which is why the Summer Grant Initiative with the Prudential Foundation, the Newark Public Reading Challenge. By the way, say someone watching right now, is it too late? We're doing this program in mid-March. What's too late? What are the deadlines? Talk about it.
Well, ironically, the program actually closes in March, where our RFP, where we have that.
Request for proposal.
Yes.
Who asked for the money?
We have a wide range of organizations.
Are they nonprofits?
Yes, they are. All of them are nonprofit organizations. I mean, we've had organizations such as Stop Shooting, which helps young people to learn different ways to be more productive with their time versus being involved in gangs and things of that nature, all the way to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Newark.
One of our favorite partners.
Exactly, which has always had a long history in working with young people in a variety of different ways.
So you've got nonprofits competing for these grants. There's a request for proposal.
Yes.
Proposal goes out. You make a decision together with your colleagues at the Prudential Foundation. The grants get awarded. Program starts when?
The program typically starts in the summer months, early May, late May.
Really?
Yes.
So there's not a huge gap. This is interesting. So young people are graduating or getting out of school. They're literally moving right into the program.
Exactly. And that's the whole purpose, to keep them engaged the moment they leave school for the year and jump right into a summer program.
We don't want idle time. We don't want them idle.
Right.
That's not good.
Yes.
Particularly in our cities.
Yes.
You know, it's so funny. I don't mean this to generalize or make light of it, but you know, in a lot of suburban areas where there are means, where a lot of parents are able to plan for the future of their kids very quickly. You know, who's going away to sleepaway camp, who's doing this, who's doing that. A lot of enrichment activities, academic and otherwise. If it were not for the Prudential Foundation, I'm not just saying this because of our partners, it's just because it's true, a lot of these young people would not have these opportunities. Daniel A. McNeal, Program Officer at the Prudential Foundation, the Newark Public Reading Challenge, the Summer Grant Initiative, doing important work, children K through 6, and over 8,000 young people in cities such as the city of Newark, their home city where their corporate offices are, Elizabeth, East Orange, Patterson, Trenton, Jersey City. Good work. Dan, it's great to be your partner. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stay right there. One-on-one will continue right after this. Stay with us.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org and visit us online at oneonone.org.
You're looking at Katie Willse, Director of Community Initiatives at the National Summer Learning Association, otherwise known as NSLA. Good to see you, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
What exactly is the National Summer Learning Association?
We are an national intermediate organization based in Baltimore, Maryland, and we're focusing on all things summer. So there's some really compelling information and research that looks at what happens in the summer months if kids aren't engaged in learning, and I think you and Dan were talking about that a little bit earlier.
Dan McNeal of Prudential.
Yeah, and so
what's the summer slide?
Summer slide, it's if kids are not engaged in activities that are supporting their academic or kind of youth development, they lose skills. They lose the academic learning that they had in the school year, and they go back to a new school year kind of behind where they were when they finished the year before.
Devil's advocate, I mean, we have school-age children, and we worry about that as well, but then I say, you know what? Maybe it's good to get away from all the academics.
Yeah.
It's just it's good for them to not have the daily homework grind and clear their head. Then they get back in September.
Right.
Now they're in a suburban, pretty wealthy, affluent school district.
Sure.
Is it different in an urban, struggling school district, and for urban kids, is it different or disproportionately more of a challenge?
Yeah, it can be. I think there's some really compelling research that looks at the difference between the effect of kind of the summer months off in comparison of low-income youth, and then looking at like their middle and higher income peers.
What's the difference?
You're looking at 2 to 3 months in a loss of reading skill and literacy development, and so kids are going back 2 to 3 months behind their peers, and you see this cumulative effect over years. And so if you're tracking kids over their elementary school years, if a young person is not engaged in anything over the summer months, you can see a 2.5 grade level difference in reading by the end of 5th grade.
Back up. End of 5th grade.
End of 5th grade.
2.5 grade levels?
Yep. Yeah, so you're talking about some students who are reading at maybe like a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level, and then their peers who are kind of on track reading at a 5th grade reading level.
Okay, you don't deal with it. Now all of a sudden this young person, 17 years old, attempting to go to college.
Right.
What happens?
Well, if you extend kind of that research out, it shows by 9th grade you can see a 6.5 year difference between students who don't complete high school. So you're looking at ones who are just struggling year after year, and there's a high correlation between students who are struggling in sort of their literacy and those that aren't completing high school, because we know that it's the most fundamental skill to being successful, especially when you get into the higher grades. Everything is based around your reading and comprehension.
So your organization is dealing with this head on.
Yeah, so
How?
we're looking at it from many angles. So our organization, we work kind of at a policy level, working at federal all the way to the local level, talking about what kind of supportive policies and funds can be out there so that programs can be addressing this issue.
Is that where, excuse me for interrupting, is that where the Summer Learning Initiative with the Prudential Foundation comes in?
Yeah, so we've been working with Prudential for probably 6 years now. As you know, they fund a significant number of programs in Newark and kind of the greater Newark community, and they kind of heard about the importance of summer, how critical it is, and wanted to get that information out to their programs to help them really think intentionally about, okay, we've got these kids at a critical time. We want to create a safe place, but we also want to create a place that's supporting their learning and development. And so we've been able to come in and do training and kind of workshops with program providers, so with nonprofits, faith-based communities, those folks that have the kids with them in the summer months. We want them to understand the power that they have to really transform their lives, right? If we know that the summer is so critical, especially in the elementary school years, we want them to really understand that research and also understand the characteristics of quality programs. Not all summer programs can be impactful or effective, and there's a lot of standards that if a program understands kind of how to set intentional learning goals, how to have objectives for what kids are learning, that they can really make a difference and move the needle.
But Katie, I've been curious, what makes a difference between a successful summer learning initiative and one that is a dud? Meaning, I think to myself, it's got to be tough with any young person any time of the year, but as the weather gets warmer, as it gets really hot in the summer and other kids are doing other things outside and a school may or may not have air conditioning, I don't know.
Right.
It's got to be really tough.
Well, I think to your point about that kids need a break,
Yeah.
we definitely agree with that. And so when we look at summer learning programs, we want to see something that has, we call it a unique program culture, something that makes
a
the
unique
program
culture.
Yeah, something that makes the program feel different than what's happening in the school year. And so we want to see things that are hands-on, project-based learning. You know, there's a great program at UMDMJ called the SMART program that's looking at increasing students' interest and skills in kind of science and medicine with the hope that they pursue those careers later in life. And so they're studying genetics, and they're studying, you know, respiratory and heart disease, and they're doing labs, and they're going out and they're studying this, and then they're applying it. There's a lot of great programs that are addressing the need for kind of work readiness and workforce development, and they're providing internships to high school students. So kids are involved in a training workshop once a week where they're kind of learning about professional development, and then they're going out and they're getting an opportunity to work in a trade or a field that they're interested in and have that experience hands-on.
But a young person can't just walk in and say, I want to sign up. What strikes me here is that it's done through the nonprofits. It's done through the community-based organizations, the faith-based organizations. That really requires that a parent and or a child, but some parent, some adult, has to steer that kid to the Boys and Girls Clubs, to the local church, to the not-for-profit organization that has an after-school program. How does a kid navigate that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's amazing, especially working with the programs that I've had the opportunity to work with here in Newark.
Are they the ones that are supposed to reach out and find these kids?
I think you see both. So parent engagement is so important. So it's one of the most important things that a program can do is build that relationship with the parent or the caretaker and help them really understand how important it is for their child to be engaged in these kinds of programs in the summer and the after school years. And I think the school has that same responsibility. I think especially when children are young, you need the parents to kind of push them in that direction. But if they're connected to a program or they have a mentor who supports them, I think there's a lot of people that can kind of steer them in that direction. But we promote the importance of bringing parents into this dialogue about summer learning and helping them to really understand how important, you know, those months are.
I got to ask you something before I get out of here. How'd you get into this whole thing? What's your story?
Yeah, I come from a provider background, so
a provider background.
So
what does that mean?
Folks that have been working, you know, with kids. So I come from a background of developing and running youth programs. I've had a chance to work in a couple different states, and our organization is based in Baltimore, so I moved to Baltimore and I learned about the association. And I thought, how cool to kind of take all the years of experience I've had working with youth and developing programs and
Baltimore's a tough town.
Yeah, I think, you know,
not too dissimilar from Newark.
I was going to say there's some similar characteristics and similar need, but I think, you know, it's been a great experience for me to kind of share what I know from my summer learning experiences, but also to learn from all these programs. The association has this great opportunity to meet phenomenal programs around the country, learn what they're doing, and try and distill that to other communities so that you can make a connection both between programs locally as well as nationally.
Finally, greatest reward you get out of all this?
I think just knowing that there's kids who have the opportunity to be safe and to be learning new things, and you know, I get to go out and visit programs in the summer months. Pretty much I'm on the road. Yeah, I get a chance to go out.
You see these kids having their lives transformed.
Absolutely, and standing up and delivering presentations on things that they've learned over the summer, and hearing them be excited about identifying a field that they want to pursue. I mean, the summer is the time to kind of make those dreams become true for them. Even when they're only 7, they can start exploring these kind of new interests. And you just see them speak with such passion and conviction, knowing that they're going to be successful, that this is a reality for them, I think makes it all worth it.
I know you probably know this, but it's one of the reasons why we started a program called Stand and Deliver. 14 years we've been doing it now.
Oh, wow.
That we're working with Dan and the folks at the Prudential Foundation to see these kids stand and deliver. That's why it's called that. There's nothing like it.
Really isn't.
We're really proud of them.
Yeah.
And they're going to be great leaders one day.
Yeah.
Katie Willse, all the way up from Baltimore.
Thanks for having me.
Director of Community Initiatives, National Summer Learning Association. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you doing important work.
Thank you.
Stay with us, one-on-one. We'll be right back after this. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org and visit us online at oneonone.org.
Ommeed Sathe is Vice President, Social Investments at Prudential. Good to see you, Ommeed.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We've been talking to your colleagues at Prudential who are involved in a range of social initiatives from different perspectives. But your piece of this is social investments. piece. Explain to us what exactly you're committed to and how it makes a difference.
Sure. So social investments is one of 3 divisions within Prudential that really works around community engagement and resources. So we have the foundation, we have our local initiatives team that's doing volunteer engagement, working with a lot of our employees to get them involved. And then we have social investments that basically takes a portion of the company's money and invests it in stuff that benefits the community. Education, housing, charter schools, things like that.
But with all the demands, Ommeed, that are out there, how do you make decisions as to what you will fund and what you won't?
Yeah, it's actually it's really a little bit of a difficult process because we have a double mandate. We're investing the money, so we need it to come back. So
That's right.
We're looking.
It's called investments.
Right. So we got to make sure it's going to pay us back, and that's one screen. But the most important thing we're looking for is a deep social impact. We try to support what the foundation's doing around education where we can, community development, particularly trying to get resources into underserved communities.
Give us some examples.
Sure. So we've done a ton in Newark, which is Prudential's home. We've invested in the Courtyard by Marriott and the new Indigo hotels. They're going to be the first new hotels in Newark in 40
Why is that
years.
so important? Explain that to people.
Sure. Obviously, they bring jobs, but I think just as importantly, it transforms the image of Newark. It makes the whole downtown a more livable place. And that kind of cycle of positive impact is what we're looking to really foster. It's not just going to be our money. It's a relatively small amount, but we've got to try to catalyze broader change.
But there's also charter schools.
Yeah, so education has been a long-time focus of the foundation, and we've supported it by financing charter school facilities. As some of your audience probably knows, the charter school funding doesn't include money to support the actual buildings.
That's right.
And so
Capital.
Capital.
Cannot use the money for that.
That's right. And obviously, you've done a tremendous amount around charter schools, and I think we try to support in Newark. We've helped North Star Academy with their new
Great school.
headquarters. And we do a lot of sort of nationally in supporting people trying to fund charter school development.
But the other piece that's interesting to me is we have partners. When I say partners, everyone thinks partners as business partners, but that's not the case with us. We've worked closely and tried to promote Habitat for Humanity. And I know that that's another initiative that you think very highly of. Talk about that.
Yeah, tremendous organization. I think a lot of people have worked and volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, and we actually worked with them to create a really innovative program that helped, at the end of the day, all the Habitat field offices end up taking mortgages back from their homeowners. And
explain that to people. What does that mean? Because I think people go, oh, Jimmy Carter, they build a house.
Right.
It's so much more than that.
So much more than that. And the families, not only do the families have to help build the houses, but they're actually taking back, it's a 0% interest, but they're taking back a very small mortgage to pay off the house. So the families are deeply committed, as well as the volunteers in building it. But at the end of the day, those mortgages need to go somewhere so the local affiliates can keep building more houses. And we actually helped Habitat find a way to basically be able to sell those mortgages and take the money and build more houses.
How much of it on the social investment piece is about teaching organizations about business?
It's definitely a two-way street. I mean, we have some tremendously skilled partners, and I think what we often end up trying to do is to figure out opportunities to marry what we can bring and what they can bring. And
Sure.
so it's a shared creative process.
Leveraging.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, explain it though, because a lot of organizations, a lot of nonprofits will say, we need a grant. I mean, we do, look, we're in full disclosure, you know it because you can see where our underwriting comes from. Not the underwriting for our TV program. Prudential is not an underwriter of our TV program. It's an underwriter of one of our initiatives called Stand and Deliver, which we do leadership, coaching and training for inner city youth. But the fact is, we seek grants.
Yeah.
But the irony is, in many ways, while those grants are very valuable, it's the relationships that help you leverage those relationships to build something bigger. Money's important.
Right.
The grant's important, right?
Absolutely.
But the leveraging.
Right, and that's absolutely what we can bring. I mean, when the grants, people get $100,000 grants. I mean, we typically make investments somewhere between $1 and $10 million.
Right.
So much bigger kind of investments that, yes, they have to be paid back, but they can allow an organization to go from doing something for 1 or 2 people to being able to do it for thousands and thousands of people.
Right.
Great example of that is our work with UNICEF. So
UNICEF. Explain to folks. Everyone hears UNICEF, but I'm not convinced they know what it is. So go ahead.
And I don't think people even have any idea how much UNICEF now does. I always thought of them with the little orange
right.
things you collect with the coins on Halloween. But it now turns out that they actually buy more than half the world's vaccines come through UNICEF. And they're purchasing vaccines on a global scale, but one of the real challenges they had was that they didn't have working capital. So, you and I know how important it is to be able to have a little working capital to pay for things before some checks come in, and all of us can balance our accounts that way. They didn't have access to that. And we actually work with them to help set up a program called the Bridge Fund that allows them to have what every other kind of business does, But for them, it's so much more important because it's allowing them to get vaccines, get food, get water to kids quicker. And that, is the kind of example, I think, what you're talking about with leveraging, where, it's not a grant, but it allows their grant dollars to go so much farther.
Is there an expectation? I mean, Prudential, the brand is what it is. And a book that I wrote a couple years ago called You Are the Brand, we looked at Prudential as a great case study of a pretty strong brand, a pretty enduring brand. Is there an expectation that while the bottom line has to be a strong bottom line, right?
Yeah.
That you have a responsibility to make social investments?
I think
even in very tough times.
Yeah, I think it's in the DNA of the company. You look at a company that's stayed in Newark now for 136 years.
Could have moved many times.
Yeah, and has been through the cycles of the city, has continually re-engaged in investing in the city, and I think brings that genuine concern for the work we do throughout it. I mean, you see a great deal of engagement in the company in sort of volunteerism, great deal of support for our programs, support at the highest levels of the company.
Help make the New Jersey Performing Arts Center a reality.
That's right.
Way back in the day. I remember talk about social investment. I remember that happened when Art Ryan got involved. I thought to myself, if Prudential had not done that, I mean, a lot of people involved, it may never have happened.
Yeah. No, and the company, I think, continues to support NJPAC in a tremendous way. The current CEO, John Strangfeld, is on the board.
Sure, your CEO.
Yep, and I think continues to be deeply involved in a whole number of causes. They've started to do a lot around veterans.
And we'll keep talking off the air. Sorry for interrupting. Ommeed, you're doing great work at Prudential.
Great.
The Rock.
Thank you so much.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Prudential Foundation, the Merck Company Foundation, the Verizon Foundation, the TD Charitable Foundation, PSE&G, the Newark Public Schools, and by the Terrell Fund. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and northjersey.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.
Health First New Jersey Medicare Plan is growing in the Garden State. Thousands of members in Bergen, Essex, Hudson, Passaic, and Union counties depend on Health First New Jersey Medicare Plan. And in January 2012, Health First New Jersey Medicare Plan will be available in Somerset and Middlesex counties as well. If you're eligible for Medicare and live in New Jersey, find out more about Health First New Jersey Medicare Plan. Health First New Jersey Medicare Plan. Feel good about your healthcare coverage.
I'm Steve Adubato. Join me for the next edition of Caucus New Jersey, Taxes, Healthcare, Education, and the Economy. I'll ask the questions that you want answered.
Airing on NJTV, 13, and WHYY. Check your local listings.